Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. It is about 11:18, and so hope everyone's doing good. So I'm trying some new things here at Film Fanatic. This is going to be a show that's kind of an album review. And I bought this album. Again, music, film, all of these things are so like interconnected for me. But I bought this album uh, just probably about a month ago, and it's just an incredible. It's by one of my favorite bands, and that is Mayhem. They put out this live album, Daemonic Rites, and I did a show last year on Mayhem. I got a chance to see them. I've been a big fan of Mayhem for ever since I was a kid. Really, I mean, I was probably, you know, since I was like a freshman in high school, I've listened to these guys. So it's been about 1,000 years. These guys were, of course, they're, you know, one of the most important, one of the most kind of pioneering bands in the black metal scene. You know, these guys were one of the key bands that really shaped the sound. They were kind of part of the second wave in Norway. You know, in the late '80s to the '90s. And this band Mayhem is like without a doubt they've gone through so many transitions and changes as a band, but I kind of feel like the last few years have been kind of some of their best work. I love the classic first couple albums, you know, Euronymous and Dead, but I'm a huge fan of Attila, who has actually been in the band for a very, very long time. And he, for me, is like one of my. Well, he's Attila, who is the singer for Mayhem and has been for quite a few years, is one of my favorite singers in general of all time. The thing that I love about Mayhem so much is, um, I saw them, me and a couple of friends saw Mayhem with Cannibal Corpse last year, and they were just amazing. I really think they kind of stole the show just because they had such a theatrical presence, and they just created such a vibe on stage, and the entire venue down in Worcester, Mass, where we saw them was like filled with the smoke, and they had this incredible lighting show, and it just like created this otherworldly feeling, and their music, black metal in general, for me, the reasons I love it so much. I'm a huge death metal fan, of course, and that's always going to be a part of my life, and I love death metal to death. But black metal for me it reaches a different level for me. It kind of dives into, I don't know, something a little bit more primal about it. I don't know. It's kind of why I love horror films. You know, it's like when I listen to a really great black metal band or a classic album in the genre, it makes me feel like I'm watching a really great kind of low budget, trashy kind of horror film. It just puts me in that state of mind because it's really raw, it's visceral, you know, and it's about the vibe, it's about the atmosphere, and I feel like black metal reaches, in a lot of ways, reaches a little bit deeper as far as just having an experience. And Mayhem, again, you know, without Mayhem, if they never existed, black metal scene would be, you know, a far different thing. I think that's safe to say. If, you know, I think it probably would still exist, but it would be such a different thing. And I think that they are definitely one of the most pioneering bands ever. It's astounding the longevity that they have. And when I saw them with Cannibal Corpse last year, it was one of the best shows I've been to. And I'm a huge, don't get me wrong, I'm a huge Cannibal Corpse fan, but I kind of feel like Mayhem stole the show. And again, I think it was because they had this extra level of this like real theatrical vibe, and it was like, you know, it was just the atmosphere that they created, along with the incredible music. It was just I felt like I was like I was watching a classic horror film. It was like a different experience than just going to see a band. It was magical. And they put out this live album. They put out an album, their last studio album that came out a few years back, Daemonic, which is actually a pretty good album. Actually, a very good album. I don't own it yet, but I've heard a few of the tracks, and it's really, really good. It's a little bit more of their stripped down kind of a thing. They their albums are, their early albums are really fantastic, of course, masterpieces, but I think they really, they definitely experimented and they kind of almost incorporate elements of prog rock to a degree and other elements in their music. But I feel like where they are now, especially with Attila on board, I kind of feel like it's my favorite lineup, my favorite incarnation of the band. And this album is a testimony. This was recorded a few years back. It came out 2 years ago. I just picked it up, and it's a collection. They mainly play, like, I guess for the most part, this live album is focused on the last studio album. They're playing most of the last studio album, but they're also playing all kinds of cuts from their entire career. So it's really mixed, but it really is an incredible performance on here. Like it's incredible. It's astounding how tight they are, how cohesive the sound is, and how powerful. A lot of the times when a band, it happens sometimes in metal band in the metal genre, but it happens in general. Like a band that you really love, and they put a lot of time and love and effort into their studio album, and you get that really incredible experience listening to the album. And then sometimes when you see a band live, it's not quite the same magic, or they might be so kind of hell bent on trying to replicate the album exactly, and it just it's not really they're not really giving you something new live. I love a band that can really bring that great material live in a live setting. But I don't want the album or albums to be necessarily replicated. I want there to be some kind of variation to it. And I think in the metal genre, I think what Mayhem is doing and what they have done is having that blend where they can be they perform their material, because their studio albums are really well produced, and there's a lot of care to the production, but they're able to, and especially around Attila's vocals, because they are truly like otherworldly, and how he is able to pull off all of those things live and in the moment, as well as the band. Just incredible. And I kind of feel like, again, they've been around over 20 years or so, and it's astounding how they still sound to me like they're 18. And this is an amazing album and testimony to the power that this band has, and their ability to stay really vital and so important. And I think the black metal scene has grown so much in such massive ways, but these guys, Mayhem, still holds their own and still can show the young ones a thing or two. Like, really, the power, the commanding power and presence that they have on stage is incredible. And again, the actual recording of this album is just amazing. It's just as good as like a studio album as far as production wise. It's almost better, just because there's that live energy. And the transitions from the songs, the variation that they have in a lot of their material is so showcased here. They're a black metal band. I feel like that in some ways, some people will look at the genre as being kind of a limited genre as far as what a band can do in it. But I always feel that black metal is really broad. I think you have your real raw kind of punk fueled black metal, minimalist. And then you have this very atmospheric. You also can have this very melodic, atmospheric kind of a thing. You can take other influences from electronic music. But I think Mayhem strikes such a perfect balance with creating this cascading sound of darkness. That again, putting it up with newer bands or younger bands, even bands that I love like Winterfilleth, which is probably my favorite black metal band, or like bands like Inquisition, just amazing. These guys have been doing it forever, and they are just as badass as when they started, if not more so. I can't recommend this album because it's such an awesome album. The quality is great. The variety of tunes that they pick, the set list, the pacing, and just how incredibly tight they are. And they really do something new live. There's like a new energy, when you compare their studio records to their live tracks. And again, Attila is my favorite singer. There's been many singers in Mayhem over the years, but Attila is my favorite. I do love Dead and Euronymous, the old school stuff, but there is something so incredibly versatile about Attila's delivery. He can do the incredibly high pitch kind of black metal screeching vocal thing that we all know and love, but he also has very much a really deep kind of a growl. He is so versatile, and he and then he can also sing melodically, and he has such a range. It's all about dynamics. I think Mayhem is really great about using dynamics, especially in the metal world or black metal world, where let's face it, sometimes that's overlooked, but they have such a musicality, and Attila's vocal delivery is just incredible, and his command of his instrument is just amazing. And the whole band, just amazing. And I can't recommend this album enough. And, if you haven't seen or checked out Mayhem, you got to do yourself a favor. I mean, one of the greatest black metal bands ever, that really, and one of the most important bands in the black metal genre and its history, its inception. And they continue to be just as vital, if not stronger now than ever. And this is a killer album. I can't recommend it. I've been listening to this album constantly. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.